Warning. The Maverick Marketer is not for the soft, timid, or faint-hearted. If you need permission or seek approval from your mother, spouse, mates in the pub, or anyone else for that matter, this really isn't for you. If any of what you've heard puts you off in the slightest, I advise you not to listen any further. You've been warned. Prepare yourself for the no bullshit, zero fluff. Quick, dirty, and uncensored secrets for any serious coach, trainer, consultant, or speaker who wants to earn more money with less work and fewer headaches, without having to kiss ass or bend over backwards to please anyone. He's a relentless and fearless renegade who will stop at nothing to reveal the harsh, unforgiving, and brutal truth about what it really takes to succeed in this business. He's a guy people love to hate and hate to love. It's your host, Drew Edwards. The Maverick Marketer is Unleashed.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Maverick Marketer Unleashed. We are joined by a very special guest today, Mark Bowden from TRUTHPLANE.com. Mark, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you, Drew. And thanks for having this chat.
That's no problem at all. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. Mark, for anyone who sort of doesn't know who you are or is unfamiliar with your work, can you just give us a sort of a brief intro into your background?
Sure. So very briefly, what I am is an expert in human behavior and body language. And I use that expertise to help people all over the world stand out, win trust and profit and gain credibility every time they speak. So I'm out there helping other speakers, helping the people who are leading Fortune 500 companies. I've got politicians, including G8 prime ministers. I'm helping them with how they communicate using behavior, using behavioral psychology. So how would you perform in order to get a certain response out of the audience that you have? And I do that through books, through seminars, training, through keynote speaking as well, and videos. I hope that makes sense as to what I do.
Yeah, brilliant. That's a really good description there. I mean, can you give us a bit more information about how you actually got into the industry? How did you come to do what you do now?
Yeah, sure. So actually, I started off way back being fascinated with human behavior and fascinated by, animal behavior. Why does the world work as it works? Why do things do what they do? Why do people do what they do? I then went on to look at performing arts. And so I was really niched in the area of visual theater. So how do you tell stories with pictures? I took this idea of trying to discover why people did what they did and how that affected others, and took that into helping people create theater and film and TV, and helping people perform in that and performing in that myself. So I come from a performance background, essentially, but very niched in this idea of visual or physical theater. I then took that into the area of politics and business. People would come to me and say, can you help us perform in front of an audience? Can you help us get our message across? And so, I guess 25 years or so down the line, here I am using this very niched experience in performance and behavior and helping people get their message across in all kinds of areas now, whether it's politics, business, healthcare, engineering. There's all kinds of sectors that I work in, Drew.
Okay. Awesome. Great stuff. So tell me, when a speaker comes to you, or when you're approached by a speaker, or even just when you see a speaker on stage, typically, what are some of the sort of big mistakes that you're seeing in the way that they're communicating with their audience?
Yeah, so, I would say probably the biggest mistake is they're not communicating with their audience. They're almost, in a sense, having a conversation with themselves. They've maybe kind of written out a speech of some sort. This would be people who are maybe just starting out. They've maybe, created some kind of speech, but it's a set piece and it's going to be the same every time. They're almost, I would say, following a script. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a script and following that. It's just you've got to do it really well, and you've got to do it in such a way that the audience don't believe that you are doing what you're actually doing, which is following a script, and it would be the same every time. My sense is, if that speaker is speaking and it feels like if I got up and left, or the audience got up and left, nothing would ever change. They wouldn't stop and go, "Oh, you're going? Did I? Am I not saying something that's interesting to you?" If I, as the audience, can't change in any way the event that's going on, then clearly the speaker doesn't know I'm there. And if they don't know I'm there, why didn't they just send an email or make a video? So speaking is live, and so it has to take into account that you have a living audience there with you, and that's a really powerful thing. And yeah, I would say, most of the time that I'm working with speakers, I'm probably helping them understand that they're alive, the audience is alive, and there's a connection that needs to go on there. Hope that makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. I mean, can you tell us, if I'm speaking to an audience right now, again, I've done some speaking before, and I'm like a lot of speakers. I just use a script.
Sure.
I sort of know it off by heart. I'm going through the motions. I think I'm engaging with the audience, but I mean, based on what you said, I could be making some of the mistakes that a lot of other speakers are making. Can you give us some sort of key elements? What do I need to look out for? Are certain things that I need to be doing with my body, with the tonality of my voice? What are the sort of the key elements that I need to have a good, engaging presentation?
Well, so, the first thing I would do is think about, are you actually really having a conversation with the audience? Are you really talking with them? Are you actually asking them questions and waiting for some kind of answer? So there's a very rhetorical way of speaking that will ask an audience a question and then not wait for an answer and just continue on. Because the speaker believes, and they could be totally correct, believes they know what the audience is going to say. Then there's a level of speaking that would say you ask the audience a question and you leave some time for them to think. They may be such a huge audience that really you can't get involved with them actually, shouting back an answer to you, but you actually do leave them time to think. And as a speaker, you've got a fairly good idea of the kind of thought process that they're in. And then there's the kind of speaking that, even if it's a big audience, you've got several thousand people out there, you actually wait for somebody to give you an answer. You're actually there really talking with that crowd. Now, this might be nothing about body language really, but it is about behavior. It is about the behavior that says, if my script says I ask you a question right now, I'm going to really ask you a question. I'm going to really wait for the answer. I'm going to pay attention to that answer, and my content, my script may change given your answer.
You're listening to Maverick Marketer Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.maverickmarketerunleashed.com.
So, one of the first things I'd be asking you to do is take that risk of really trying to have a proper conversation with the audience at times. Now, at times, you got to stick to what you know and what you're doing. But it's about how that audience can feel like they have an influence over you, feel like their judgments, their thought process, their ideas are important to you, included, and have potentially changed the way the speech is going. Hope that makes some sense, Drew.
It does make sense. And just to be clear, are they actually changing the way the speech is going, or do I still have, so I sort of know how they're going to respond, and I've got my sort of response ready as well?
Well, yes. So the more you speak to audiences, the more you get a sense of the kind of answers that they have. And also, your content, and you know the kind of way that people will think about this content. So will they actually change it radically? Probably not radically. Will they change it enough that the way you spoke today was different from the way you spoke yesterday? Yeah, they might actually do that. Would they change it enough that, my expertise is in body language and behavior, that actually I'd start talking about I don't know, fixing motor cars because that's what they want to talk about. Well, no, at that point I'd go, you know what's really interesting that you really, you know, are fixated on wanting to talk about mending motor cars. You know, really that's not my area of expertise. And so I'd have to get back to my area of expertise. But even that moment of cluing into what they maybe want to talk about helps them understand that I'm listening to them. Yeah. And it helps them understand where my expertise is, what I want to talk about, and also might help me understand how I need to make a link between what I'm talking about and what they maybe have great interest in.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Brilliant. Thank you. So apart from the speaker actually not engaging with the audience, are there any other sort of big mistakes that you see people make?
You know, there's a lot of stuff like just hiding from the audience, hiding behind the podium, the lectern, not moving into the audience, sticking with being on the platform or the stage, not using the space around them, creating something that is very, very static and language driven. I mean, I know, yes, you know, you're a professional speaker, but what you're part of is a live event, which is being seen. You know, to most of the time, you would be in some kind of theater. And by theater, I mean, you've got an area whereby the action happens, and you've got an area in which the audience is there. Theater comes from Greek, meaning the seeing place, the place where you go to watch stuff. Yep. And so the auditorium is the place where you go and hear stuff. And theater, if you want it to be theatrical, you've got to see stuff, which means you're going to need to be doing something.
Oh, okay.
It's going to have to be dramatic. Drama is from a Greek word, meaning the doing thing. So when you're doing drama in a theater, you're doing something for people to see. Otherwise, you should just be in an auditorium, which means really just sit down with a microphone and don't move and just say stuff. But in the modern world, I don't know why you wouldn't just send me that via podcast.
Yeah.
Or why you wouldn't just, or if it's about the linguistics of it, it's about the things that you're saying, maybe you should just send me a very long email, because that would be way cheaper to do all of that. Be way cheaper for the buyer to buy, be way cheaper for people to get hold of the information. You know, it could be, you know, $20 to get the book rather than thousands of dollars to hear me speak. So if you're going to hear me speak, my guess is I've got to make it a bigger, more interesting experience than just the words. So, you know, one of the things I try and get my clients to do is be more visual, use their bodies more, use the stage more, use the audience more, understand that actually they're creating a piece of theater and drama, not just something for an auditorium. Okay.
Okay, awesome. Brilliant. Thank you. And what about, so when I'm speaking to you, Mark, I noticed that, I mean, you use the example there that if you're just going to sort of speak at someone, do a podcast. But I mean, here, listen to your voice. Even your voice is very sort of dramatic. I feel like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it almost feels like a show as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is that something you've worked on? Is that something that you would also teach your clients as well?
Sure. So look, you know, as I'm speaking to you right now, strangely enough, though I could, I'm not sitting down. I'm not sitting down, I mean, I'm actually, what I could do, I've got a couch in the office, so let me just lie down on that there. So I'm now doing what I could easily do, because you can't see me, so you're not able to see that I'm just sitting down and relaxing right now. But that's what I'm doing, and what I want you to think about is, you know, how engaging is this for you now? You've still got an expert with you, so the content won't change. The content is going to be great content. Though my guess is that your theory now about the content, because of the tone of my voice, which is coming out of the behavior that I'm doing of lying down, your theory about the content is the content isn't that interesting. Yeah.
And I can feel the whole energy's dropped as well. The whole energy of this conversation has dropped just from you lying down.
Right, because I'm lying down, and usually what's happening, usually the reason why human beings lie down is to go to sleep or to relax or to rest. And you can hear that in my tone of voice, and you can probably hear from the way that my language is now broken up, is that because I'm going into this rest state, my brain isn't getting enough oxygen to really run it at a high content level. And I'm getting even slightly bored by myself right now. So I'm gonna change my behavior. In order to change the thought process and the speaking process, I'm going to change the environment around my brain, my body, and or one of the most controllable elements of the environment. And all I've done is to stand up, and I'm now using my gestures. I'm using my body in a more open and expansive way. And my guess is now suddenly you're going, oh, this is going to be great content. I'm kind of interested in this. Now, look, it'll either turn out to be good content or not good content. Yeah, but your predictions about how good our conversation is going to be together, your predictions about it are being run by your experience of me now. And my guess is it's more upbeat, more engaged. So as I'm speaking to you now, even on this podcast, I'm trying to create, even for myself, a more physical, visual experience so that communicates across to you.
Brilliant. Great stuff. Thank you. And Mark, one of the things that before I sort of asked to come on, I went to your website, I looked at, you had a video, and one of the things you were talking about in the video is the first impression that your audience gets from you. Can you tell us a bit more about that and why it's important that you sort of control that, if you will, to make sure you get a good presentation across to your audience?
Yeah, so here's what we understand, and you know, anybody listening to this can judge how true they feel this is, but we make judgments about the people around us instantly. We are judgmental. We're judgmental about every interaction that we get into instantly. And you know, anybody who says, oh no, I never judge people, they're just lying.
Yeah,
that's you know, to try and appear like a non-judgmental person. But the moment you stop judging things quickly, you'd very quickly die. You wouldn't be able to get on with your life. You have to make judgments about people quickly. Sometimes those judgments are very, very accurate. Sometimes those judgments turn out to be not so accurate, you know, or something in between. So we judge people the moment a speaker walks on, regardless of, you know, the introduction that they've been given. That human being walks on, starts behaving, starts performing, and the audience judge them, and they judge them as to whether they're going to be good or bad, whether they're going to be profitable for them or whether they're going to be a risk for them. Are they going to be a friend or a foe? Are they going to be helpful or unhelpful in their life? And it happens really, really quickly. There would be some behavioral scientists who would say it can happen as quickly as a 50th of a second. Wow. So, you know, as fast as a shutter on a camera, you know, an old SLR camera, as fast as that shutter can open and close, that's it. The picture has been taken. The judgment is made. Is this good or bad? And then once that judgment is made, then the brain starts selecting data to back up that judgment. It has what we call a bias. So if I come on stage and you judge me as good, you're now just cherry picking anything that feels good, and you're forgetting anything that feels bad. That's not even getting processed. If you judge me as being negative, as being a risk for you, suddenly all my content is cherry picked for stuff that seems risky. And if you can't find anything that's risky in my content, you then just use your imagination and you make it up. So that what we call priming, that moment of first experience, many people would say ends up governing the rest of the experience, regardless of the content. Now, of course, you can change people's minds along the way. And of course, people will listen to content, and that content may well change their minds regardless of how bad a performance you give. But I would just say, if you could give a better performance and have better judgments up front, well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And many people,
makes your job easier, doesn't it?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you make a great impression first off? And then people would come back at me and say, well, no, my content is really, really good, so I'll let the content speak for itself. But I would say, well, if you made a bad impression right from the moment, when they're not listening to your content anyway, they're just not listening. Yeah, the only audience that's listening to that content is one that's already primed that the content is brilliant and it's of massive use to them. So you can go to certain events where you've got a speaker there that's very, very dull, but the audience really, really needs their content, and they will listen to it. But these tend to be niched experiences. It tends to be, the academic review, for example, whereby everybody's turned up to hear the paper read, and they're very, very intrigued by the academic research. And it really is just somebody auditory reading a paper, and they've paid a lot of money to go there, and it's in a very, very niche area. For those of us that don't work in that niche area, we have to come up with performances that engage the majority of people on the planet. That if anybody showed up, they'd go, look, I don't know what this guy is talking about, but it seems really interesting, and it seems like the content could be really good, so I'm going to listen to it and make the best out of it. Does that make sense, Drew?
Yeah, it does. It makes perfect sense.
You're listening to Maverick Marketer Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.maverickmarketerunleashed.com.
So, just on that, can you give us sort of a few tips, a few things that we can do? So when we're walking out on stage, or when we're walking into even a sales meeting, things that we can do to make sure that the first impression that we give is a positive one. It's just going to help with the conversion.
Sure. So look, just think about kind of two types of body language, open body language and closed body language, or two types of behavior, open behavior or closed behavior. On the whole, we can look at some more specifics, and to find those real specifics, pop along to my website, truthplane.com, or go on YouTube, Google my name, Mark Bowden, and you'll find a whole bunch of video where I'll be able to demonstrate this to you visually. But in your own mind now, just think about, what would your behavior be if you're open? And what would your behavior be if you're closed? Now, pick an element of this open behavior that you think is a quite big behavior. It's not a small gesture. It's a big gesture. Think of that in your mind, and I would say, how can you do more of that immediately? How can you do that immediately as you walk onto stage? So I'm thinking, when I'm very, very open, my hands kind of open out at my belly area or my chest area. I've got open palms. My hands are up rather than down by their sides and hidden away. And that's a big gesture. It's not a little thing. It's not like, well, my eyes are more open when I'm open, because I'm thinking, 2,000 people back, they maybe can't see my eyes that well. They might be able to see them on camera if we're projecting up my image really big, but maybe that they haven't got that at this event. So I've got to make gestures that everybody can see at a distance, and everybody could see as being open. Because if they see an open person, they're more likely to go, that person's open, that's an advantage for me, therefore that person is not risk their advantage, therefore their content is good. Okay, go and find all their good content, regardless of what it is. And if we can't find any, make up some good content that they had. And that's why, often when I'm speaking, people will come up to me afterwards and say, that was a great speech, and I love it when you said, and they'll say something that they think I said. And I'll think to myself, well, I didn't say that, but that's a great thing to say. And what they've done is they've gone and made up the best thing in their mind that I could say to them or for them.
Wow.
Sometimes it's such a good thing, I'll steal the idea and use it in the next speech that I use and think, oh, that was worded in what they said I said was worded in a great way there. So I'll actually take that and use that. So what you're doing when you're using open body language is you're causing the audience to make the best of you and make the best content that you would have. And sometimes they'll even report it back to you, and you can take their content and use it. There you go.
Awesome. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. So Mark, this is a question that I like to ask to break up the interview a bit, but also so our listeners can get to know a bit more about you. But can you tell me sort of one thing about you which most people don't know? So an interesting or funny story or fact?
Sure. You know what? I'm going to make it a little bit enigmatic by not telling you exactly what it is. But if you Google Nike streaker, so Nike as in the running shoes manufacturer, and streaker as in one of those people that runs across football pitches without any clothes on, Nike streaker. If you Google that, you'll see a video, and you will probably see more of me than you ever should.
Wow.
I'll leave it at that, Drew. I'll leave it at that. Please go and do this after you've finished listening to the podcast, though.
Awesome. Good stuff. Brilliant. Thanks for sharing. Okay, Mark. So back to business.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're in a really successful place now. You've got a really successful business. But everyone who achieves success is that, I mean, we all know that it's not always plain sailing. There are going to be times where things don't perhaps go to plan, things don't really go so well. So can you give us a time when sort of your back was against the wall, things weren't going right, nothing was sort of coming into place, and you maybe even nearly almost failed or did fail completely? And tell us what happened and also what you learned from it.
Yeah, so I would say in the business that I've had so far, the closest that we've been getting ever to things going wrong and getting close to failure is not having enough help. As you grow, you can't do it on your own. And as any entrepreneur will probably tell you, when you're building your own business, you tend to be the kind of person who wants to do everything on their own because they see that there's finite resources around them, and you want to have control of everything, and you want to, save resources on everything. So you tend to try and want to do everything on your own. And then you start to find that you're overwhelmed. You just can't get everything done. I used to have a system before I had others working with me in the TRUTHPLANE office. I used to have a system whereby if you inquired after me and I called you back and you didn't pick up the phone, you didn't answer first time, I wouldn't ever call you back. And not because, I thought I was above one call. It's just I didn't have the resource. I didn't have the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'd have to go, okay, so I can't get back to you. I've got to move on to the next call. There was, and I'd be, working until 3 o'clock in the morning, just trying to get all the admin done, get all the arrangements made, get back on every email. And so when it came to phone calls, which really had to be done in the daylight, again, there was only limited time. So realizing that you need help and getting people to help you is really, really important. And I would guess that's where our success currently would be. And that's where, close to failure that I must have missed a lot of great opportunities simply by that rule of going, I can't get them on the phone, so move on to the next call. Can't get them on the phone, move on to the next call, and never getting back to that person. Simply there wasn't time. And it was my failure in not going, well, I absolutely have to have help, and we have to bring people into the organization to partner with us to get the massive work done. So ask for help, get help. That's a real key, I think.
Brilliant. Great stuff. Thank you. Brilliant. So Mark, as far as I know anyway, you've written 3 books.
That's right. Yeah.
The winning body language, winning body language for salespeople, and then Tame the Primitive Brain. Can you just give us a brief overview of what's in those books?
Sure. So winning body language in my mind, and I've read probably, I wouldn't say all body language books out there, because that's probably not ever going to be the case.
Yeah.
But I've read all the ones that I know of.
Yeah.
and it was the first. I wanted to write a book which wasn't about trying to read other people's body language or trying to get the upper hand with people by being able to predict them. Not that that kind of thing can't be done or it isn't interesting, because it can be done to an extent. But in my experience, it can't be done to the level that most people would like it. You know, most of us would love to be able to read people's minds and watch their behavior, and through some very simple indicators go, here's what this person's thinking, here's what they're feeling. And the chances of getting that accurate are actually just relatively low. Not that you should investigate it. It's great fun. It's a great area to look into, you know, being able to predict what people might be thinking or feeling from their behavior. Great, really interesting area. But what I felt was most useful to people was, how can you choose your behavior in a way that will have a very high possibility of having a set effect on other people. So how can you influence and persuade other people around you using your nonverbal behavior, using your body language? And so Winning Body Language, which was the first book that I wrote. In fact, what happened was a publisher came to me and said, we want a title on body language, and we think you're the person to write it. To which I obviously instantly said, never have you ever made a better statement or decision. Yeah, I'm absolutely that person. And then went into convincing them that they didn't want a book about judging other people's body language. They really needed a book about how to produce body language or behavior that has an effect on others and has an effect on you, the person producing it. So you can change other people's minds through your behavior, and very importantly, you can change your own mind with your behavior. You can change your behavior will change your mindset and other people. So Winning Body Language really is about, at its core, is about that, and giving people the techniques and the tools that I'd learned from actually the area of performance. And again, a very niched area of performance that actually went back thousands of years in its history and in its techniques, whereby over time people had learned, but pretty much kept it to themselves in the area of performance. They'd learned the techniques of changing other people's minds using behavior, using performance, essentially. So how do you move to convince another human being that the world is a certain way, or you're thinking a certain way, or they should think a certain way? Does that make sense?
It does make perfect sense.
Yeah. So that was my first book. And then people really started seeing the relevance of that to sales. Of course, it's very, very relevant in leadership. You know, how do you persuade and influence people around you? Of course, part of sales, or the majority of sales, really is that persuasion and influence thing.
Yeah.
You know, how do you persuade and influence people that you as the salesperson can be trusted and you are credible? So really, Winning Body Language for Sales Professionals, which is the second book, puts these techniques of influence and persuasion using your own body language to influence and persuade people, and puts it in the context of sales.
Okay.
And so we looked at, you know, many of the examples of classic sales situations that people would be in. whether it might be in a store, to an 8-month sales cycle where you're meeting the presidents of large organizations to sell them multi-million-dollar deals in a product and service. So we looked at a big scope of situations and said, how can you use on purpose your behavior, your body language to influence and persuade people? And the main influence and persuasion here is, how do you win trust and build credibility around yourself? Because they're judging your product or your service really around the salesperson's behavior, essentially. Yeah. So that was the second book. And by the third book, what I got really interested in was the idea of how our instinctual mind works, how our what many people call the primitive brain or the reptilian brain, how that works, and how everybody's got one, and everybody's got one that works pretty much the same as each other, and how that links us, and again, how we make our judgments about the world and how we behave as we behave, based on that we all have some very similar pieces of neural architecture. Parts of our brain are built exactly the same. Doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, who you were born to, where you were brought up, whether you're male or female, whether you were born at the top of a mountain or down by a lake or on a continent or on an island or in a hot part of the world or a cold part of the world. There's parts of the brain which are so similar that they link us at a behavioral level. And how would we use an understanding of that, again, to be able to monitor and judge our own behavior and get on better with the people around us and get on better with ourselves? So that was Tame the Primitive Brain, 28 Ways in 28 Days to Manage the Most Impulsive Behavior at Work. So, how can you use an understanding of behavior and neural architecture to get on with the people that really matter in your working day and outside of that? So those are the 3 books, Stu.
Brilliant. Perfect. And those 3 books are available on Amazon. So if you listen to this and you want to get Mark's books, just go to Amazon and search for Mark Bowden, and you'll be able to find them on there. So Mark, again, the killer question, apart from those 3 books, can you give us sort of one book that you recommend any coach, trainer, consultant, or speaker sort of must read? So either a business book or even just a book that's had an influence on you on a personal level that you would recommend to other people.
Yeah, sure. And this is a book I would recommend anyway, but as I'm with the Maverick Marketer, it is quite a maverick book.
Okay.
to recommend, and because really at first glance it would have nothing to do with speaking or coaching or business, and if you read into it and you read it well, you'll find it has a lot to do with everything. But I'm going to recommend to people a book called The Manual. And the manual was written by 2 guys, Bill Drummond and Jimmy Corti. Bill and Jimmy were part of a band called the KLF. They were also part of an artistic group called the K Foundation. The manual is a book on how to get a number 1 the easy way. Yeah, so how to get a number 1 hit with absolute 0 effort. Now, what's inside this book is really a great, I guess, treatise on how to market, a great treatise on how to affect other people's behavior, a great book on what are the triggers that you can produce that will cause people to do things you'd like them to do. If you think about having a number 1 hit, a number 1 music hit, essentially it's a piece of you've got to create the product first of all, but the product first of all has to be a product that will cause people to, as they said in the manual, get on the dance floor. Across the world, any dance floor, it will cause people to put down their drinks and move to the dance floor and dance. So they were exploring, what do you have to do to cause any audience to do that? And then they were exploring on what do you have to do in order to market that, to get people to play it to each other in a commercial sense. So how do you create the 2 kinds of movement, the movement onto the dance floor and the movement of creating that popular #1 hit. Now they know what they're talking about because they had a string of #1 hits using this method. And if you read the book and then listen to their music, you'll go, oh yeah, they're exactly doing what they've told me to do here. And so for anybody who is interested in the idea of success and interested in the idea of how you can purposely create behavior that might most get you the success that you want, the outcome that you want, I would recommend the manual. It's a very small, relatively thin book, so it's very easy to read. Read it with an open mind and get a sense of how it might talk about the industry that you might work in, or the job that you want, or the clients that you want, or the success that you want. Now, as they rightly say, this is the book that helps you understand that you can have a #1. It might not make you happy, but you can have it if you want it. So it's that idea of, if there's an outcome that you want, you can have it. It may not actually be the thing that you thought would having it may not give you the happiness that you thought it would, but you can have it if you want it. You've just got to know the steps towards getting it. So there it is, the manual, Bill Drummond, Jimmy Corti, otherwise known as often the Time Lords or the KLF. Go and read it.
Brilliant. Great stuff. Thank you. Something different there. I've actually never heard of that book at all. You get sort of the generic business books on the show, but that's something we've never had before.
Well, all the more reason for people to go and find that book and read it, because you won't have read anything like it before. It isn't necessarily linked to the area of business that most people will have, but there's some deep knowledge and expertise and some great fun in it as well. So go and read it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Mark, what's been the biggest breakthrough in your business over the past 12 months?
Yeah, good question. I think I'm going to kind of go back to what I was talking about before, which is, I think in the last 12 months, we've had another person working with us in the TruthPLANE office here, Bronwyn, and bringing in that extra person again has created breakthroughs. Again, getting help, asking for the right help, engaging people to help you, using other people's skills and talents and time and ability. That is consistently a breakthrough in terms of how productive you can be and how you're able to concentrate on the things that you really need to concentrate and allow them to do what they do really, really well. So engaging somebody who has great talent and, hopefully saying, here's the outcomes that we want, go and do it in the way that you do it. And so that's been a big breakthrough, I would say, this year is adding that extra another person to the team here at TruthPLANE and the productivity that comes with that.
Awesome. Great stuff. And what are your predictions for the future of the speaking industry?
Well, I mean, I think they're pretty good in that so long as so here's the thing. Here's the way I'd look at it is if you want to get everything that I'd be able to tell you in a keynote, you can have it. Just go online and watch my videos. It's all there for free. So you can have it. Yeah. And it is awesome. And I've never held that back. You can have my best techniques for free online. You will never have to pay anything to go and get those. So if you're the kind of person who can motivate themselves to go, yeah, I'm going to go to Mark's website, I'm going to watch those videos. He said it's all there. He's a world expert in his field, so I can go and get his expertise taught by him for free. I'm going to go and do it. If you're that kind of person, great, good for you, because you're going to get it for free. And then if you can implement it and use it, I guarantee you the world of communication for you is going to change, and the way that people respond to you, and your success is going to increase. I can guarantee that. So you might think, well, Mark, that's kind of a terrible business idea, because now just, any organization can just tell all their people to go and watch your videos. Here's the secret. They can tell them to go and watch the videos, but they're not going to do it because they've got other things on their mind. Yeah. If as many organizations they want me to train their people, they can tell those people every day, go and watch Mark's videos, but the majority are not going to do it because it's just not on their mind. It's often not how they're being rewarded. It's not attached to their pay scale in any way. It's not attached to promotion in any way. They're not going to be rewarded enough to watch my videos. So they're just going to go, I'll go and do that. And they won't. Yeah. So and here's what, carry on.
Even the ones that do go and watch it, they probably won't implement what you actually teach anyway.
Right. They won't implement it because it costs them nothing to go and get it.
Yeah.
It's not seen as having as much value. Yeah, it's not around an event that gives it even more value than it actually has. So here's what those organizations have to do. They have to cause their members or employees or whoever that community might be, they have to cause them to get in a room together and ship me usually over into the country that they've all met and put me on the stage in front of them so that group can watch me live and experience the energy of the live event. And with that energy of the live event, they then value that content. Not that the content wasn't valuable, it's just they give it enough value because it's a live event to go, we should try this, we should implement this. And so the majority of people start implementing it, and the company, the organization, get the results that they're wanting to get. Okay. So look, here's what I'd say is all of us as speakers have a great future so long as organizations don't start linking pay and promotion to watching our content for free. The moment any organization manages to get the idea that they really don't have to get these speakers live, all they need to do is attach watching TED Talks to pay scale. As soon as they work that one out, every TED Talk you watch and implement, you get X dollars. Yeah. As soon as they do that, we're dead in the water. But chances are they're not going to do that. No, yeah. So we're okay. We're okay. Which is, organizations need change. They want change. They need to help their people, their members or their employees or their community. They need to help them. People want to better themselves. They want to be educated. They want to get the results that they want to get. And it seems like one great way to do it is get speakers like us live in the room to energize people, to remind them that they're alive, to remind them that they can make decisions about their life, and remind them that they can have some of the things they want if they're willing to search out the techniques and use those techniques. So I think the future's pretty good for us, Drew.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Mark, that's been awesome. Again, thank you very much for coming on the show. Where can our listeners go and find out more about what you do?
Yeah, so very, very easy. All you need to do is put in TRUTHPLANE into your browser, TRUTHPLANE, TRUTHPLANE, and you'll find the site. Or indeed, put Mark Bowden into the browser, Mark with a K, M-A-R-K, Bowden, B-O-W-D-E-N, and again, I'll come up. And visit the TRUTHPLANE website, watch videos, read the books, do whatever you think you'd like to do in order to understand more about how to use behavior in order to influence and persuade people to win trust and to gain more credibility when you're leading and when you're selling.
Awesome. Brilliant. Again, Mark, that's been really good. Thank you very much for coming on the show and taking your time. And again, I've learned a lot from what you've shared today. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great speaking with you, Drew. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. I will speak with you again soon. Until then, take care, take action, and be relentless.
listening to Maverick Marketer Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.maverickmarketerunleashed.com.